40 seconds to spare.
Look at that. Hello and welcome to the Milford Finance Committee, Wednesday, April 10th, 2019. First item on the agenda is the approval of the March 21st, 19 minutes.
Move. Second.
Motion by Al, second by Jack. All those in favor? Unanimous?
Mr. Chairman, I
Yep.
abstain, I was the president at the meeting.
Yep. Chuck and Al.
I was not present, I was at
Actually,
Billy
we were-
Joel that night.
We were fighting for a quorum.
Yeah.
To the meeting and make a sacrifice like everybody else?
All right.
Take us to Billy Joel, so I had to go to
All right.
that.
Let's start with some of the budgets. So get some of these gentlemen out of here. Jamie, you want to come up and do cemetery now? All right, everyone, I put, or Paul put it up on the drive, and I also put another one, Article 4, up on the drive. It's under FY19 submitted budgets. And I made two extra tabs, tabs of the departments that came in within the limit, and the other tab is departments that were outside the limit. So I'm hoping that we can go through the within limit budgets and accept those as a whole. As we did last year, it's much easier than going through them one at a time. And then we'll address the outside the limit budgets on all the other departments. One of whom is sitting in front of you, Mr. Lucchini for the Verde Grove Cemetery.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be brief. This is usually one of the smaller budgets you have to deal with tonight. As you see in front of you, we are about 13% over where we normally are, is above the 2.5 that was requested. I'll explain why very briefly. As you can see, our general expense line items, interments and groundskeeping, we came in at 0% level funding. The largest increase was in salary and wages, and as I'm sure you're well aware, have been going on for the last 2 years to complete a contract issue with the workers. They have now joined a union, and between negotiations and our retro, that our budget now for next year, they have approved salaries now, 2.5% increase. One of our employees actually has a 26% increase next year. It brought we brought him level with the park department light equipment operators, because that was the biggest issue in the winter. He was doing the same work as they were, being paid less, so that was the inequity. It's been going on for about 2 years. A lot of that is because people in the negotiations have retired along the way. That's why it took that long. It's finally signed, sealed, and delivered, and what you see in front of you is now a true union rate and wage and budget.
Anybody have any questions for Jamie?
What's the whole dollar increase?
The whole dollar increase, we went from 132,000 last year to 146,000, roughly about a $10,000 increase, 10 or 11. That was basically all salary. Like I said, our general items, our line items, we came in at 0. We kept them the same.
Any other questions for Jamie? Jim, what's your budget number again?
Budget number total is
No,
140.
I'm in your, what number, you 180?
Oh, we are number 491.
491, yep. Do we have a motion to accept 491 with the explanation that Jamie had? Motion by Al, second by Joycey. All those in favor? Thanks for coming in, Jamie.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, James.
Scotty, you want to come in?
How does 132 to 1?
Mr. Chairman, did you say you put a new tab in here?
There should be two tabs on the bottom. The first one says master, and then the other two says within limits and without
I
limits.
got the within limits, but that's all right, maybe it's me.
Okay.
Issue.
Bob, you want a hard copy? I got a hard copy for you. if you want.
No, that's all right, I want
The-
to,
the-
I'm on a learning curve
The
here.
first, well, it's been a while since he's been here. So.
I'm sensitive
He
too.
looks good, though.
Why,
He looks good.
It looks good. If you look on the original tab that says master, that has all departments.
Got it.
Tommy, give him the stone tablets. He'll feel at home.
So Scotty's another one of those budgets that is outside the limits. He explained it to the subcommittee, but we still wanted to have him come in and just explain everything, so.
All right, so I am a little bit above the 2.5%. I'm at 3.26%. The reasoning for that is we have moved the transfer station's leaf and brush program to our dump site on Asylum Street. So the Board of Health no longer takes leaves or brush at the transfer station. They take it to Asylum Street now. So with that being done, we had to have employees work that situation. So they've been working weekends and an hour here and there after work to stay open till 4 o'clock. So what ends up happening is our overtime salaries go up $20,000. I put this in the budget this year. I would hope there was a way that we can work this out with the Board of Health. If that can even be done, I don't know. But they are manning we're splitting the time between the Board of Health and the Highway Department workers. But the Highway Department workers get overtime when they work. It's outside of their regular workday. So that's the only reason for the increase. Everything else fit in there, the 2.5%, did everything except for that $20,000.
I would think that the money you're paying extra to the highway department workers should be offset by a reduction of the salaries that the Board of Health has to pay. Is that not correct?
I would think so. I don't really know the answer to that question. I
mean, I would,
I don't know. I would hope that's what can happen.
I would like to ask the subcommittee to look into that. And the second thing is, if you're moving everything to Asylum Street, again, Joyce, is that you?
Yeah.
You know, take a look, as we had talked about, to say, should the whole transfer station be moved under the highway department? So that he has the transfer station and the budget and everything else. So, you know, my recommendation would be for the future that the subcommittee look at it and come back with a recommendation.
That is something we have discussed with the Board of Health commissioners, so. Like I said, I don't know where that starts and where the discussion starts, I don't know.
Well, I think the discussion starts with you and the Board of Health and the subcommittee, and come up with a plan. I can't see any argument. I think it's logical that it moves to you.
And I think they've talked about, privatizing, and I don't think that's the thing to do, but, that would be my opinion.
Well, over the years, we've made out quite well with the excess funds that was able to take care of it and keep the prices low for town residents. So I would hope that if we're looking at privatizing it, that we make sure
Yeah.
that it's the best for the residents.
Taking on the brush, taking on the compost has actually helped us. We just made looming material that we're gonna be using for the next 5 or 6 years at a fraction of the cost to buy it. So, I mean, we recycle everything, that's the future, that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna continue to do. So, it could help us out all around.
Cool.
That's it, everything else, the budget, everything's, salaries, everything was fine, so within my 2% there.
In light of the timing of our town meeting, I would motion favorable for the additional, I believe it's $20,000 you said,
Yes.
in your budget, and leave it up to Joyce and the committee to review any adjustments that need to be made over the course of the year. Move favorable.
I think that's fair. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Joyce, a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor for a favorable recommendation or acceptance, of budget 421? All those in favor? Unanimous?
I did.
Jerry, and second by Joyce. You don't have anything else, do you, Scott?
That's it.
I appreciate you.
422.
Oh, I apologize, and I put that on the other one because it's under. So,
It's okay though, isn't it?
yeah. Let me just find it. You have it there, Paul? 422?
422, you looking for just what the number is?
Yep.
It's,
1,043,960.
This would be 421 though.
Yeah, that's 421 is the 1,293,000.
No, 1,043,000.
$1,043,960. There's one right below it.
Oh, I must be looking at the wrong one, I'm sorry.
There's one right below it.
That's one down.
Yep.
Confused, but that's all right.
Isn't it going on 421 though? It's going on my salaries.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I have 421 here, too.
It's over 421, 5130 is my overtime.
Are you telling me that the 20,000 is not included in this?
Yes,
number?
422, the 422 is the 500,000. The 421 is the 1.293 million. I'm looking at it right now.
422 is still it should be the flat number that it was last year.
I understand. I'm talking about 421 and 422. 421 is all his salaries. That's 1.293 million. Help me, Mr. Accountant, you're shaking your head.
So 421 highway includes general expenses, okay? So 421 has general expenses of their own. 422 is general expenses, repair of his vehicle equipment, repair for major street projects. That's 422.
Yes, but the salaries are all in 421. That's what we just.
Oh, yeah, yes.
That's what-
Salaries are in 421.
Okay,
yes.
all right, thank you. All right, so we just accepted 421. Motion to accept 422 is other, that was at 2%. Motion by Jerry, second by Mike. All those in favor for accepting 422?
Which Mike?
Soars.
I got all
All right, now you're all set. Thank you. Unanimous.
Nice job, keep up the good work.
Stone Ice stays, there you go.
Yep. Well, we don't have a number on that yet.
Well, it stays at 600,000.
It's that budget, if you remember, 420.
Oh, yeah. So 420, so anyone accepting 420, motion to accept 423, snow and ice for 600,000?
So moved.
And then we'll adjust it the minute. Motion by Mike, second by Schiavi. Nicholson, Schiavi. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, next, library. Sue, do you want to come up?
Which one is that?
Got a budget number in this one?
610.
Thank you.
610. 610.
All right, this is another budget, and talking to the subcommittee headed by Mr. Nicholson, in which they had a little bit of a disagreement on their budget. And with that, Mike, if you want to just lay the groundwork.
A very good meeting with the library. What we saw in the numbers was they had about a 2.8% or 35,000 increase over the prior year. Salaries and wages were only about 1.48. But the general expense area was up around 20,000, which by numbers in overall scheme of things wasn't a whole lot, but it was an 8% increase. And that was really what threw everything out of kilter a little bit. We had discussions about the 8%, and we really couldn't reach any harmony on that. I believe they felt, and they may explain, that this is sort of becoming a year where they need to bring in some additional expenses, or bring their expenses up some, not one time, but just bring everything up. So it was because of the general expense line that we really ended up voting an unfavorable, with the intent for them to come in tonight and explain and justify the increases, and I have probably no doubt that the subcommittee will find a favorable vote if the full committee agrees with what they hear tonight from the library.
That being said, ladies.
Yeah. What's happening is that to be certified in Massachusetts, we have to make a minimum municipal appropriation, and that is a formula done at the state level. They tell us what we have to meet to make sure that we get state aid every year. And what happens is that every year we get, like, right now, $38,000, and that helps us to meet another part of our state aid requirement, which is called the materials budget. And if we had not added the money that we did, we would not have made that minimum appropriation number at all. Also, we wouldn't have enough money to meet the materials portion of that budget, of the state aid requirement. And over the last 2 years, we have done very well. We had cut in our operating budget to make up for all of the union we had to do, all the raises and all the steps. So we were in line for almost 3 years within the guidelines that were set by the Finance Committee. Well, now we have to be able to bring everything back up so that we are certified. And that's why we did the $14,000 in the operating budget, along with what we have to do in the union contract.
So it might be helpful to outline what the penalties are if you don't meet those requirements for the committee.
Well, if we're not certified, what happens is that we lose all library services in Massachusetts. We couldn't borrow from any of our neighbor libraries. We belong to the CWMR's library network, and there's 148 libraries we would not be able to borrow from. And what we're talking about earlier is that we do support the summer reading in Milford. And what happens is that those students could not use the CWMR's library network to get any of their resources. And last year, we had over 500 requests through us, throughout the network, to take care of the summer reading requirements.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sue, within the general category, are there specific accounts that you increased, and could you give me reasons as to why?
We did the,
I looked at the books, for example. The books went
Yeah.
from 72,000 to 80,000.
because what happens is that we have, we have to make, in the 2020 budget, the way we have it right now, 167,910. So to do that, we had to increase certain ones that are important when we do state aid. And they're the ones that, like for books, that counts, the databases counts, the periodicals counts, AV counts, supplies counts, and then also ebooks, which is also part of the book account. So, yeah, well, that's,
And Sue, what is that number 167 again?
that's 13% of the budget. Every year, the state of Massachusetts expects a library to spend 13% of its overall budget in materials, and that's databases, it's DVDs, everything that we do lend out in, annually. So for us, they expect 13% of that, and for 2020, the way we have the budget right now, it's going to be 167,930. Okay. I have to start wearing the glasses more.
That's okay, thank you.
So is this a direct result of the salaries going up, so that increased your overall budget, so now your expenses must go up to meet?
Well, they haven't even finished negotiating the budget for the salaries yet. And that's also what would happen, because what happens is if they finish negotiations in 2020, they'll add that extra money for the salaries into 2020, and we're gonna have to recalculate the MAR, as they call it, more. And that's also gonna adjust it, which means we're trying to make sure that instead of having a $20,000 gap, we only have a $14,000 gap. Because no matter what, it's gonna go up, and we're trying to make it easier to go up than expecting the budget to have 30,000 altogether. It's a less of a jump now than it will be when we finally get the negotiations taken care of.
But, Mr. Chair, so, but you have to do it this year to stay certified, right?
Yes.
Or is there a one-year grace period where you don't have to worry about it?
No.
So you would get decertified.
Yeah.
Right, so to Mike's point, the salaries have gone up, the budget's gone up, the percentages therefore go up, and the dollars have to go up.
We'd be on waivers.
Yeah, we would
Right.
have to apply for a waiver.
So we're trying to be proactive and make sure that we stay certified.
Any other questions, guys? Yeah, Bill?
But we're not in danger. I mean, we could cut back on some of the hours and still meet the guidelines. I'm
We
not
have-
saying we want to.
We would not want to.
No.
Right, I mean, I just want to make it clear that this is not, we have to. This is Milford going above and beyond to maintain the level of service we're doing.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so in the past, we've gotten confused over we have to, and it's a difference between we want to. And I'm not saying we don't want to, this is great for what we're doing, but we're not in danger.
So you're
It's a
saying we
slippery
close the
slope.
school for the library for a couple of days, and that way we wouldn't have the salaries? What do you
No,
mean?
you wouldn't have to have as many people
Yeah, you started
working
this.
those hours.
You started this.
We have to be open 65 hours a week, and there are days that we have a lot of people coming and forth, and you can't judge, and you want everybody to be safe. So we say we have to, I know you say want, but we have to do this.
No, to keep the level of service, I agree. But it's not, I don't want anybody getting the impression that, like years ago, that we almost had to ask for a waiver because we weren't
We're
meeting.
not up here, we're,
Yeah.
Right.
We're right at the throat.
we're here
Yeah.
and we don't wanna be here. So
Yeah, I
instead
agree.
of being here, we're trying to leave
Mhm.
it here.
Yeah.
So at this point, I mean, a library, this is one of the hubs of our town with all the children and everything, and we're talking about 30,000 in order to stay in line with the state. And I think that
Thought it
that
was
should be
20,000.
something, is it 20 or 30?
20.
It's-
20.
Well, 20, depending on which set of numbers you're looking at, it's in a category of 20,000.
Yeah, okay,
You
20.
combine everything together.
Yeah, all right, so 20.
20 for the expenses.
Yeah.
20 is the issue at hand.
Yeah, so I mean, for
I would
20,000.
move favorable on the
To
20,000.
accept the
Please.
budget, yep. So the motion to accept budget 610 by
Second.
Jerry, second by Chuck. All those in favor for accepting 610 as it is? very much. Thank you very much, ladies, for coming in.
Thank
All right.
Whatever they ask for more.
For the budgets that are over, that is pretty much everyone I was expecting, but you guys
Tommy.
can help us on some of them.
Tommy, have you got a hard copy of that, because I can't find it?
Yep.
Please.
Would you take the first budget? I'm ready to give you a copy of what we have.
Yeah.
I can go over.
They're not, they're under though, too, so yeah, if you want to take the, yeah, so do police.
I can do all the treasury.
All right, perfect.
I couldn't find it on the same myself.
I make a motion.
All right,
Mr.
excuse
Chairman,
me, guys.
Paper
your
copies.
subcommittee met with the public safety people in the fire department and the police department. And the police, I'm pleased to say that the police budget is coming in at this point 1.64 above last year. Now, that also includes the fact that next year's is leap year, so you have to bank enough money to pay everybody to work an extra day next year. So with a budget of $6,728,133, I'm recommending that we accept this and that this become the police department's budget.
So this is budget 210 for anyone who's looking at it on the spreadsheet.
6, 7, 8, 133?
Now, remember also, too, that when we introduced the special task force last year, he did say year 2, there would be some savings because of the upfront purchases of some of the equipment for the task force, so that on year 2, you were going to see a dip, and I think year 3, you see a dip, and then year 4, it jumps back up when they have to repurchase some of the stuff. So that's one of the reasons for the dip. so.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Is there been any, like, assessment of this task force so far in terms of, is it meeting expectations, or, you know, what is it accomplishing? I mean,
Yes, they are. The police chief is quite comfortable with what's going on in his department, and he's been, now, I've done the police for a number of years. He's very aggressive with his budgeting. And actually, when we did the budget, it was less than 1.6, but when we added the leap year money, then it came back in at 1.6. But, yeah, I'm comfortable that he's comfortable with what he has.
Any other questions regarding 210 Police Department?
Did he make a motion to accept?
No.
I will, based on his.
Motion by Jerry to accept 210 Police Department budget as presented. Aldo second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Diana, do you need a copy? Joyce, would you pass that around to Diana?
Sure. These are all the financial departments, Mr. Chairman, which would be the Treasury and Health Insurance. I will start with the count. Well, let me just back up. The subcommittee is Andy, Mike, and Aldo. We met on March 29th. Andrew could not make it, partly because it was during the day. Sorry for that, Andy. And the subcommittee voted favorable for a series of budgets, which I will go through right now, okay? Town Treasurer, Department 145. There's a slight decrease in dollars. It was $213,850 last year. It's $213,250 this year. So there's a decrease in dollars. How that happened, we looked for non-reoccurring items, and there's an audit they do for OPEB every other year. So in 18, it was $10,000. This year, that item disappeared. As a result, the budget is in line, okay? Yeah, then we have, some of these are very simple. Department 158, tax title foreclosure. Last year, 25,000. This year, 25,000. Just as a point of reference, tax liens, this year, we've collected some 182,000, and foreclosures, we collected 288,000. And in terms of expenses to date, we have spent some 18,000. So, you know, the budget of 25, we're under budget, and we've done very well in terms of getting additional revenue. Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah, you know, debt, you know, I'll just mention this. You know, debt, account 710 is a $12,000 decrease this year, last year, from last year's budget. Long-term interest is a $137,000 decrease from last year's budget. Short-term interest, it's the same as last year, $152,000. Okay. Now, that was quick, but I did want to mention some of these things, so.
Yep,
everybody was
absolutely.
aware, Okay?
So, do I have a motion to accept budgets 145, 158, and
So moved.
710? Motion by Aldo, second by Jack. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. All right,
Okay,
what did I do?
751 and 752.
Well, I was gonna have you come up, and I wanna burn through all these. Come up and,
You ready? You ready now?
yeah,
what is he doing
we're gonna do all the budgets. We're
Yeah.
gonna try to do with these two. We're gonna try to blow through them as much as possible.
With these
now? Do you
two.
want me to do town benefits and unemployment insurance?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were
Yeah, no,
done. I'm
yeah,
so
no.
sorry, Phil. So, yeah, you can keep going, you can
Yeah,
have them
that's-
do it, whatever you wanna do.
I miss doing this, so give me a chance.
Of course, absolutely.
All right.
You paused, I thought you were done.
Town treasurer benefits, that did increase. This is account 147. That did increase 4.3%. The increase is all in salaries, and that is all either by contract or contractual. Okay. Unemployment compensation, the budget for this year is 200,000. Last year was some 200,000.
What number is that?
That is account 913.
Yep.
And lastly, this is account 914, employee health insurance. That has a 2.4% increase, really for new employees. That's why it's, if you look at health insurance, it's account 5173, and that's a $200,000 increase for new employees. The OPEC, that's in there, OPEP, I have to get that, at 600,000. And if you remember, the OPEP is really the funding for retirees' health insurance, and we've been funding that every year. You know, that's, you know, we don't have to fund that. That is something we've decided to do for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's been at some 600,000 a year. Okay, that is in there. And that's really it. Health insurance, I looked at the rates of health insurance. There was a decrease in health insurance this year versus last year. There was a 3.7% decrease. Last year, health insurance did increase. They did not go out to bid. The reduction in health insurance was really a function of utilization and claims. And I think they will look to go out to bid next year. Because even though health insurance may decrease, you know, because of utilization, your rates have not changed. So you always want to revisit the rate structure, so they'll probably go out to bid next year. But just in aggregate dollars, because of utilization this current year, health insurance is down by 3.7%. And that's fully insured, okay.
Interrupt you. You done?
Yeah, I guess.
So,
Any more I can do, just.
a motion to accept budgets 147, 913, and 914.
Move.
Motion by Aldo, second by Chuck. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Now, so anyone who has the file open where I have the budgets within limits, I just want to, if we can burn through those really quick. I'm just going to read them off. I'll read the percentage change, and then we'll go to the budgets outside the limits, and then these two gentlemen will help take care of any questions we'll have. Obviously, if there are any other further questions, and we need to have that particular department head come in, of course, we'll do that at our next meeting. So, with that being said, I'm going to read off the budgets. Budget, and I will accept them as a whole at the end, and if we need to pull one on individual, we certainly can do that. Budget 114, moderator, 2.5%. Selectmen, budget 122, 2.5%. Reserve fund, 132, 0%. Assessors, 141, 0.7%. Town treasurer, 145, oh, we did that, I'm sorry. 148, other general government, 1%. 151, law department, down 6.7%. 152, personnel board, 2.3%. We already did 158. 162, elections, down 8%.
General government's down 1.7 total.
I understand, Jerry, I'm doing it line by line. We'll get to the other departments that are outside. 163 registrations, 9.5%. Concom, 171, 2.5%. 174 town planner, up 1.8%. Planning board, 175, up 2.5%. Industrial commission, 182, even. Fair housing line, 186, 2.4% increase. 189 capital planning, 0. 192 public property and buildings, 1.8%. 193 other insurance, 0. 195 town report, 0. And that's all I have for ones that are within the limit. Does anyone have any questions on any of those? They're all either 2.5 or lower. Do we have a motion to accept the budgets that I just made? Motion by Jack, second by Aldo. All those in favor for accepting the budgets I read? Unanimous. All right, so let's go to the budgets outside the limits, and we can talk about those. All right, gentlemen, ball's in your court. If you want to just go down and,
Well, we have the finance committee, 131,
we can't even control our own budget.
Cut them.
and that's a little high, only because of contractual obligations for Paul and Megan.
Yeah,
We don't want to do anything with that.
it's still under. All right,
We have town accountant, that's a contract obligation for Zach and myself. It'd be slightly high, but overall, we're just slightly above. And then with schooling and everything going on, general expenses are gonna be up a little bit, 1.5% for me. Okay? Tax collector, if Jerry wants to speak on behalf of this.
We've had several discussions, and I'm perfectly okay with what we agreed to. The selectmen have approved it. We read through the narrative, and it makes sense. There's only one caveat, and we'll review it next year and see if it works. It's a part-time position, 19 hours a week. And we're offsetting some seasonal monies, and
That's in this budget?
yeah. The adjustments were made to take away and subtract, and it'll be fine. Again, we're not committing to a full-time person, we're committing to a 19-hour part-time person to take on the seasonal ups and downs. And then I guess there was, I didn't realize, how many pieces of mail do you get returned a year?
That gets returned to the tax collector, usually a year is upwards of almost 5,000 pieces of mail.
Yeah.
So what happens is when,
we can just send our tax bills back and we don't have to pay them?
yeah.
I had no idea you could
Change
do
your
that.
address and they can't find you.
You have to write no thank you.
I can't believe it.
When people sell their house,
I gotta change it.
it doesn't meet, it overlaps on the fiscal year, it doesn't change, so the post office won't forward to the care of person. And then the same with motor vehicles, if they leave town.
I was kidding around. 'Cause
Can I read from the narrative, just one sentence that's really, it was very well done, very well, good narrative. And it says, the position to help send out 43,000 real estate and personal property tax bills and 74,000 excise tax bills. That's huge numbers. Okay, the office receives an estimate of 5,000 to 6,000 pieces of return mail. Can you imagine trying to figure out where to send 5,000 to 6,000 pieces of mail, and each one of them has a tax bill in it? So it's a ginormous job. So let's fund it and see if we can't make it work.
The only question I had, I thought we outsourced all
We
the
do.
sending of mail.
We do, but the outsource can't verify the address. It's our job to provide that information. And we get bad information, we pass on, we get poor data, we pass it on, and it comes back in the form of return mail. And someone has to sit there and research each piece of mail that comes back. So,
147?
147, that's what we just,
did I explain that well?
Oh,
Jim?
we did do
Benefits,
147,
yeah,
yep.
you already
I'm
did.
so sorry, yes, we did.
down to 153. 153, you're gonna see, and that's our new Human Resources Department, and you're gonna see quite a spike in the general expenses there, 172%. And embedded in that is $8,000 for employee training. Now, not only some of that is for the Human Resource Director, her own training and going to classes, but it's also, she's gonna be implementing training classes that are gonna be mandatory for all town employees, whether it be sexual harassment, training classes,
Regular harassment.
regular harassment, yep, sexual harassment, and regular harassment. There's 5 or 6 new. Discrimination, thank you. So she's in the process for FY '20, gonna be implementing these and bringing in outside agencies to actually perform the classes. And so that's the reason for that spike, and again, that's for both Maureen and town employees, so that's,
Question?
yes.
Would that be a recurring expense every year?
I don't believe so. When we talked, it'll be, now, what will happen though, Bob, and that's a great question, because you are gonna continuously have new employees every year.
Right.
So it may not be as large a scale as it is. We may send them out to a facility, which will be a much lower cost than having to bring them in here.
So this is to get us over the hump,
Yes,
so to speak?
yes.
Thank you.
Catch up.
Yeah. Next one, we want to pass over the IT budget, so,
I think that's a
because
good
we
idea.
have, we didn't get really the schools yet, and internally, we have a new employee, and we're still working through the budget, and.
We have a subcommittee that will look at that anyway.
Okay.
Okay. Fire department, the chief's gonna come in at a later date for him. Inspections, it's really a matter of contract obligations here. As we know, and one of them is Matt Marcotte himself, is gonna be getting quite an increase too, but that's the reason for the high amount there between him and his staff, so that's all contractual obligations there on the personal services side, okay? Sealer of weights, nothing major there.
292.
Okay, 291, we're all set there. 292, animal control. There's still negotiations going on there between Rick and the animal control officer. She's actually looking for one new part-time person to help with the calls and make sure there's continuous coverage around the clock. But Rick will further have some dialogue on that, and if necessary, we'll actually bring in the animal control officer to speak to you. Okay?
So we're gonna skip 292 then?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. 296, hydrant service, it's, inspector control, insect control. Really didn't have any dialogue on that. What we basically did was just, that's Rick as well. So Rick will have to speak on behalf of that as well. School, we're not gonna talk about, right? Blackstone Valley Tech, that, we actually got the annual budget for that, and it actually come in 3% less.
3.2% down, yeah.
Yes.
They had, the reason for that, there's 8 less students that have currently been accepted into Blackstone Valley Tech for the next year. With that, though, Dr. Fitzpatrick had said that since acceptances have not been completed, as well as people who may turn it down, I don't know whoever turns down Valley Tech, but if anyone does turn it down, they do offer new spots open to other people. I stressed to him, as the previous former chairman did, and I do, that I hope we get as many Milford kids into Valley Tech as possible. And he also told me that he does as much as he can, but obviously it's the acceptance process. It's pretty strict, and that committee does it, but he obviously voices along to them our desire to make sure as many Milford kids as possible get the opportunity to go to Valley Tech. So his budget was down 3.2%.
For that student, just lower students.
Lower students.
Our portion of
8
his
lower
budget.
students.
And that pretty much covers total education. The vocational tuition is gonna be a slight increase. Town engineer, basically is, just slightly higher, and it's really, contractual obligations between the, for the town engineer. His step increase, as well as a slight increase in very slight increase in office supplies, a couple of $100, total of 4.6%. And it's mainly contractual as well. Street lighting,
You factor it in with
3.1%, slightly higher than last year,
Just electric costs.
and that's just the cost of doing business each year. On-street parking, solely contractual obligations there, step increases of the person there, based off personnel board, which will be proven later on. Waste management is in line, that's personal services mainly, it covers that, and then the disposal and all the disposable rubbish costs, there's just a slight increase in there as well. from last year to this year, okay? Sewer, they're pretty much under budget, and I believe you're gonna have the sewer.
Yeah, I think
Commissioner coming
we
in.
want to take a look at that, Mr. Chairman, because the way it's presented, the debt is factored in there, and I think we want to look at operational costs separately, so give us an opportunity to review that before we
Certainly.
accept that. Thank you.
So that number's gonna be even better than 1.8?
Hard to tell.
Cool. Doing a great job down there.
Tree warden, slight increase on the, that's all contractual obligations that cover that 2.5%. The health board, they're coming in on 2.1% contractual obligations, 0 on 522, 524, those are all state level funded.
The only thing I would say is, given that it's a shifting of expenses from the Board of Health to the highway that's making the highway over, do we want the Board of Health to come in and explain why those expenses aren't coming off their budget?
Yes.
We certainly can do that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're running a business.
Oh, yeah.
Youth services, it's really contractual obligations from the personnel services standpoint, and then a slight decrease in general expenses there. Okay. Veterans, that's level funding. Commission on Disability level funding. Parks and Recreation, we have Jimmy Haslam here to speak if you'd like to go over some of his thoughts and.
He's here for something different.
Oh, okay.
His budget's good.
Okay, but his budget's fine, okay. We're here for the articles, correct. Historical Commission, 1.9%. And then now we get into the, Chris, long-term debt, short-term interest, and short-term, long-term, short-term, all decreases.
The only thing, Chris, I think we forgot to do 751 and 752, so just add them onto your thing.
Perfect, thank you. So,
Both are,
oh, yes, I didn't do those.
short, long-term interest and short-term interest. Yeah. So the
Thank you.
long-term interest is decreasing and staying the same.
Yeah,
Short-term interest.
yeah, that was going down.
It should, we don't, just, what would we need short-term interest for?
So
You borrow in anticipation.
if we need to borrow for a short period of time, so if we have to do bans for upcoming projects, those like 0 to 3 year.
We don't have any upcoming projects that require short-term interest.
We haven't closed out within school. We have,
Okay, I rest my case.
we have
I thought-
some other stuff. Water company
Normally,
and
that's,
all that.
that's when we didn't have enough money in the bank. We had to go to the bank and borrow enough money to pay the bill.
It could be for that too, but our
We-
cash flow's
Yeah.
really good right now, so I don't expect that to happen, so I don't wanna jinx anything.
Yeah,
This
that
is more or
part.
less a placeholder, is what you're
yeah,
saying.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mo-
we've
moving
never
right along.
funded that for
Moving
years.
right along.
It is a placeholder. Right, well said, Jerry.
All right, guys. So with that being said, is there any questions on any of the things? Okay. So accepting of budgets, 131, Finance Committee, 135, Town Accountant, 146, Tax Collector, 153, Human Resources, 240, Inspections,
Gee, that's right.
411, Town Engineer, 424, Street Lighting, 425, On-Street Parking, 431, oh no,
Yes.
431, Waste Collections, thank you. 542, Youth Services, 751, Long-Term Interest, 752, Short-Term Interest, and I think I missed 350 and 351.
Yes. Blackstone Valley and.
Yep,
vocational.
Blackstone Valley, 350, and 351 vocational tuition. With all the explanations we have, is there any other, is there a motion to accept those? Excuse me, motion by Al, second by Mike. Any other discussion on any of those budgets before we accept them?
That's the no.
All those in favor of accepting the budgets as listed? Unanimous, thank you. Soars. All right, so I think we're good. In case I missed anything, which I guarantee I probably did, we're gonna have the follow-up meeting anyway, and then for, we'll touch base with Zach about IT.
IT, yes.
Thank you guys very much for your hard work all year to get these budgets in line. I really appreciate it. All right. Let's move to some articles. I think because we're done with budgets for now. So, Jimmy, why don't you come up and we'll get you out of here.
Who's this guy?
Okay, Article 10. Okay, Article 10 was the Parks Commission truck. At the last meeting, there was some question regarding the purchase of this truck, so they wanted to have you in, so you're in.
The subcommittee went through this, and this truck was on the capital plan for the fall. It unexpectedly failed inspection, and then as we started going through it, we realized that if we wait till the fall, the Parks Department, I take my hat off to you that you were honest and said if you had to, somehow you could figure out how to survive till then. But if we wait till the fall, we would not be able to order the plow in time for the snow season. So by moving it to the spring under the special condition, it's not an emergency. You know, spring capital is only special issues and emergencies. This is under the special circumstance. We could get it in, get it outfitted, and Scotty could use it during the winter and not have to hire another truck. So that's why the capital committee, those two reasons, propose that we move it forward, and it would just reduce the amount of the 1.5 million that we would have in the fall. I think I said it accurately.
It's just shell game, just moving the,
I think it's just good planning is what it is.
yeah, I
You
think so.
anticipate it, you know it, you need the truck. It's gonna help us by doing it now instead of later. You're gonna pay for it anyway. Any other questions?
Yeah, one of the reasons why we wanted the Parks Department in here was to get an understanding of the full fleet inventory that you guys have. You know, we replaced the truck last year, you're requesting a truck this year. How many trucks do you have? How old are they? You know, I'm not asking for that right now, but if you could submit that to the FinCom, just an inventory of all your vehicles under the Parks Department.
I can give it to you right now. if you'd
Oh,
like.
yeah, that'd be great, yeah.
So we have, in the past, what's been done, so just so you all know, I was just appointed this
Oh,
position.
I'm so sorry.
My
Jimmy,
name's Jim
introduce
Azzam.
yourself
Yeah,
to everybody.
that's fine.
Sorry.
And I worked with the department for 18 years, so I'm pretty familiar with how things have worked in the past. So in the past, we have gotten trucks handed down from the sewer department. Since I've been here, there's been two. One has been taken off the road. The other one we still have, but it doesn't have the towing capabilities that we require for our trailers and the weight of the mowers. We have 6 trucks right now that we use in our fleet, and we have 7 full-time employees. In planning for the operation, as far as towing trailers, mowers, what we've done in the past is we've dropped off trailers, unhooked trailers, gone, picked up other trucks because we were short trucks that weren't able to pull. So by getting this next 350, that's gonna give each person a truck in the department able to go in all different places and not have to. So the total trucks we have now are 6. The one that we just eliminated 2003 because it didn't pass inspection. And the body, frame, everything on it, pretty much.
So this would be truck number 7 then?
This would be 7, yes. So we have 6 operating trucks in our fleet now, with actually 3 that are going up for auction that have, I've addressed with Paul Pinto to have that done in the spring.
I move favorable.
Motion by Jerry for a favorable recommendation on Article 10.
Second.
Second by Jack. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Joe, Joe.
You're gonna be a dually,
All right, folks, I apologize, I'm gonna fumble here for a
I know your
second,
name.
because like I said, I was prepared to have Zach mention over selectment articles.
I didn't, okay.
Wanna go sit on the other side of the chair, the table, Michael? No. Wanna go sit at the other side of the table?
I wasn't planning to.
All right, wanna do it next time?
Yeah, if you could.
Absolutely.
it's a heavy-duty piece, and it's far better for that moving snow.
Why don't we do Brian? Brian, why don't you come up?
You get more money, more value.
Brian Cole.
How's it going? You getting over the bump?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Article 18, being proposed by Brian Cole. How you doing, Brian?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
You have a preference for which mic? Let's do this one.
Everyone you
One
want.
that works.
That's all you want.
You tell me, I don't...
either.
Oh, okay.
Hit it, they'll tell you.
So how does this usually work?
Right, just explain your articles.
Right, okay. So,
Who, can you introduce
oh, I'm sorry, my name is Brian Cole. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 8. I submitted a citizens petition article to move the date of the town election from April to November. By special legislation. The reason I made that, thank you. The reason I made that proposal was because we have a problem with our elections in town. As I'm sure this committee knows, we had less than 13% turnout last week, and that was low. It was the lowest we've seen since 2011. But it's not unusual, unfortunately. We haven't cracked 30% in a town election, in an annual town election, since 1999, I think it is. And to be clear, this is not a Milford problem, right? This is a United States problem. This is every municipality has this issue. This is across the Commonwealth, across the country. And there are a number of small measures that we could take. We could try to better publicize the election, whether that's taking out ads or sending out additional mailers or so forth. We could try to move the election to Saturday. Some communities are doing that. We could have a voting festival outside of the booths. That's a thing that people have proposed. But all of these proposals, in addition to costing money, are only going to move the needle a percentage point or two. There's very few options that we have that'll, get us to a respectable number. And that's why I'm proposing this. I believe this is a low to no cost solution to the problem at hand. 56 municipalities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts vote in November. I had the pleasure of reading through 100 or so municipal web pages over the last month or so. Those 56 municipalities had an average turnout around of 29% in November of 2017, an off year when there was no other election. So people expect to vote in November. I talked again to Amy Hennessy-Nevis, the town clerk, this morning, to confirm that she believes that this is possible. Now, that's not to say that there are not necessarily logistical challenges. It is not as simple as, as she explained it, we'd be conducting two elections in parallel, basically on the same day. So you would have two lines, you would have two ballots, you would have two sets of registrars checking people in. But the good news is the voting machines, the new voting machines that we just voted for, can handle multiple ballots simultaneously. We would only need one police detail, so there's a slight savings there. So I believe this is, that's, like I said, this is how I believe this is a way to get more votes for less money, slightly less money. Now I yield my time to questions.
Oh, perfect. Good job, sir. Bill?
Yeah, Brian, do you have any data, and I'm sure you do, from our last national elections, the town of Milford? What was the percentage of the vote?
Sure. The last national election in 2016 was 76%. The last state election in 2018 was 57%. These are in line with the state average. Now, I will say that when other municipalities have elections on the same day as town elections, let me try that again. When municipalities have, in even years, their turnout is slightly lower than the national numbers. The turnout for the handful of special elections that were held in November 2018, I believe was around 50%. As I was sitting there preparing for this, I realized I forgot what the number was. So it was lower than the average state election turnout in those towns, but clearly significantly higher than what we would get on a normal town election.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry,
Brian?
Brian,
Yes.
was there any difference between, well, the last November, or rather the last election in 16 was a presidential?
Correct.
Obviously, a presidential election draws more people to the table.
Yes.
Did you have any numbers when it's an offline, like a not a presidential election?
You mean a state number? No, I'll do it again. You mean a state election or a?
Any kind of an election?
Sure.
Other than a presidential?
Sure. So in 2018, the turnout in the town of Milford was 57%.
Okay, now that was just a state election?
Correct.
Okay.
Although it was slightly, I believe it was higher than usual.
Well, no,
midterm.
what I am curious, what was curious, a presidential election, I would think, is always going to draw more people.
Oh, absolutely.
Certainly, well, we would hope it would draw more people.
We would hope they would all draw 100%.
Yeah, well.
Hope,
yeah,
sir, hope.
Well, you can always hope.
I plan to.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Through you, is this a courtesy call, or are they, what are you looking for?
Well, I think the reason I brought him in versus a refer to sponsor or something like that is because this does have actual financial impact. Because if we did go to one election day versus 2 election days, obviously there are savings in, or what I believe would be savings in the
Number of wardens, number of.
Yeah, election wardens,
Staffing, yeah.
Budget,
So-
details,
so
everything.
that's the reason why I had the gentleman in.
Can I just, I don't want to mislead, I don't want to be accused of misleading the committee here. I think the cost savings would be small. I don't believe.
Not really, it's pretty significant.
Well, I don't know that we would,
Is it the same day? It's
it would be the same day, but you have to have 2 sets of, you do have to have 2 lines. You might, I don't know if you'd have to have 2 sets of wardens. You would have to have 2 sets of people checking people in.
Hands on deck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like Amy told me this morning, we would basically be running 2 elections on the same day, rather than 1 election.
So you're not allowed to consolidate the elections, is that what?
You have to use a separate ballot. There are separate, excuse me, there are separate lists of eligible voters. Certain people are eligible for the state election, but not the town election, based on when they move, for instance. I don't quite understand that, but I'm assured that's the case. Yeah.
But we could get some advice or some insight from the other 55 towns that do this,
Yes.
maybe 56, and find
56.
out how they've managed to do, because at some point in time, we've got to be able to program a computer to create a list that tells us what election people can vote in, and then do it on one list. The other thing that I note, okay, after going to this most recent election last Tuesday, I believe it was, the turnout was definitely less than expected. And I went into one area, it happened to be the Portuguese Club. There were more people working
Yeah.
than there were voting.
There are more police officers
More
than there were
police
voters.
officers than people voting. I was the only, I wasn't at, I went to see my wife, I was one of them. And I was the only person that was eligible to vote, but I had to go back to precinct 3.
And I heard from.
And I was precinct 3 after 8 o'clock, and I was the first voter. And I had no intentions of being the first voter.
AM or PM?
In the morning.
Oh, okay, good. I don't
Let's
know.
hope it was AM.
So your effort is much appreciated, because at some point in time, whether the cost savings is minimal or huge, the overall effect is to get more people in the polls making the decisions.
Sure.
And if that's what moving it to November does, then that's the right decision.
And I believe there are additional advantages to having it in November. I believe, as anybody who would, who has participated in a campaign, has been part of a campaign, has held a sign, has knocked on a door, would you rather do that sort of thing in February, 2 months before the election, or September, 2 months before the election? I think it'll encourage candidates to do more outreach. I think it'll encourage people to open the doors when candidates knock on them. And so I think that we will increase the sort of knowledge and awareness about the election overall.
There'll be more money.
Well,
Money donated and spent.
you'd be surprised how well, maybe you wouldn't, you'd be surprised how well that tracks to voter turnout.
Right.
Brian, did you happen to bring this to the selectmen to talk about?
I have not brought this to the selectmen yet.
Certainly
They're-
should be, courtesy anyway.
Sure. They are aware of it, and they are not in favor of it, I don't believe.
Well, I guess maybe you don't know.
It's too selectmen.
Yeah.
I've not, you know, I've not heard a lot about it, haven't had the opportunity to ask any questions.
Oh.
Just a few that pop to mind, when would it take effect?
Right.
I just be careful with you and Mike here talking about it.
Yeah, we don't want to turn this into a citizens' meeting, you know?
That's the only reason I'm,
What's the proposal? I don't know enough about the proposal.
yeah, thank you.
Would you-
I just don't want you
I'm
two
not
to
gonna
get,
give a decision.
I just don't want you two to get in
I
trouble.
was, honestly, I was wondering based on the comments you had a couple of weeks ago. And,
What should we do, Chuck?
No, it's define the problem.
For the sponsor.
What's the risk? When does it take
Probably vote
effect?
for it.
I would be more than happy to talk to the board.
It
doesn't make a difference
Very good.
to me.
Brian, what I think you should do is, I think you should go to the selectmen first.
Okay.
I think they might advise you, or maybe they might say that maybe they'll set up a committee to help look at this, because obviously there are still many questions that need to be answered and looked at. And, you know, for us to decide on something, you've never come before us, we're kind of sticklers on details. If there's ever any questions that we don't have answers, we're not gonna give you an answer until
No, of course.
you have all those details panned out. So that's what I would recommend.
I did send an email to the town administrator requesting
Perfect.
well, this was before the warrant closed.
Okay.
To be put on the agenda at a meeting. And,
Because we're gonna have another meeting at the end of April, so depending on how things go with the selectmen, maybe we can have you back in again, or we'll go from there.
Chris, could we need some sort of hard analysis on what the cost differentials would be?
That's certainly something that we're gonna definitely need before I make a recommendation either way.
Amy has that?
I discussed it with her.
So I think you should go to them first. And then after what they decide, maybe come back to us at the end of April. I think that would be the best course of action. I don't know if my committee agrees with that.
Procedural.
Yeah. Chris, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, that's a good idea. I also like the concept, but I just don't know enough. So
Sure.
I don't know what I don't know. So I think we need more information.
Of course, and please feel free, like, whatever you need, feel free to ask me for, and I will find the right way to get it.
Yeah, I just don't know the impact on the town in terms of starting, town officials starting in November. Do we have bylaw issues or legal issues? And I don't know all of that kind of stuff. That's what I'm,
That's a fair question.
that's what I'm referring to.
That's a fair question. I would point out that April was not passed down in stone from on high, on Mount Sinai or anything. We have moved the date of the town election before. We've moved it, when we were originally chartered as a representative town meeting in the 30s, I believe the election was in March. It was moved in the 70s to May. After a couple of years, we figured out that that was cutting it too close to the end of the fiscal year. And so we moved it back a month to April. So this sort of, that question has been brought up before. It's a legitimate question, and I'm working with town council to clarify that in the
Yeah,
proposed
that would be
article.
very helpful.
Yes.
Aldo?
Mr. Chairman, once again, protocol, it should go to the selectmen first. We have no process, we are not part of the processes yet, other than hearing this. But I also would like to suggest that you have some focus groups, so that part of the 28,000 people that are out here can give you their opinion, so that maybe some of the voters that aren't voting
Sure.
will say, gee whiz, maybe I should do this. I think you got a lot of legwork to do out in the general public, because they need to do it. These are their elections, they're the ones that are gonna come out.
I mean, with respect, we sort of know what the general public thinks, because they're voting with their feet here, or not voting with their feet, so to speak.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Sometimes people just
Combination of many.
aren't excited
Move
about
to table.
what's happening. Maybe if you get a strong race out here, whether it's selectmen, school committee, or whatever, you'll draw people.
Having said that, though, I would point out, we haven't cracked 30% in 20 years. And even the
All right, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we table the discussion on Article 18 for future discussion.
Thank you, Mr. DeVito. Motion by Jack. All those in favor for tabling Article, sorry, Brian, what are you again? 18?
18.
Unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for coming in, Brian.
Thank you
Appreciate
all
it.
for your time.
Definitely reach out to Rick and get
Appreciate it.
yourself into a selectmen's meeting, okay? Jerry, did Larry Duncan contact you regarding the signed by law, Article 21?
Yeah, I told him it had nothing to do, I don't know what he's talking about.
You were the one that wanted him to have him come in. I said, does it, because we tried to do it at last meeting, you said to have the planning board come in. That's why I had him call you. Because it was a sign by law, I thought we were just gonna refer to
Signed by
sponsor.
law about the size and dimensions of signs hanging.
Exactly, but,
It didn't make any sense to me as a finance committee, and I.
well, I thought we were gonna refer to sponsor last meeting, but you said you wanted to have him come in, so that's why I wanted to have him call you.
Motion to refer to sponsor.
Motion by Schiavi to refer to sponsor. Maybe I screwed up,
Thanks,
but
Mike.
I thought that's
You
what
didn't
was the
screw
case.
up, but he did ask me.
Okay,
I said-
perfect.
And I responded to him, I said.
What happened? Right.
Unless he wants to put up a fee, if he wants to put a fee out.
Motion by Mike to refer to sponsor, second by Andy on Article 21. All right, guys, like I said, the only remaining articles we have left were selectmen articles, and like I said, because of Zach calling in sick today, I apologize. Hopefully, we were gonna bang all those out. We're gonna have to do those at a future meeting. I am looking at the calendar, and I saw April, what was it?
April 24th.
I think it was April 24th. You're exactly right. Is that the Wednesday?
Yeah, that's the Wednesday.
I was looking at Wednesday, April 24th for our meeting.
That works.
By then, I'm hoping that our education budget can be finalized. The fire department can come in and propose his budget, because like I said, it's added personnel, so I wanted to make sure he came in. And also, as Aldo had referred to earlier, there's some new equipment purchases that he's going to be discussing as well.
And we're still, I don't know that they've settled their contract yet. Mr. Buckley, has the fire union gotten their contract settled? Okay, so that's gonna hang out.
Maybe that could be done. As well as, I know that there are two selectmen no, one, because you guys passed over the chief's budget.
Just a technical
Yep.
clarification.
And then we needed the total on the
We haven't voted.
police chief. You haven't voted on the police chief search funding. So those are the only two you haven't voted
We
on.
haven't voted to pass over, but
Oh, I thought you voted to pass over. I'm
my
sorry.
general sense is
Okay,
what we'll be doing.
so we have two more selectmen articles that we had anyway that they haven't voted on that we needed to meet for anyway, to be honest with you.
But I think, the intention.
Yeah, I figured I'd talk to you guys and talk to Rick. I think everybody knows where we are, but
Exactly.
we need to know the number before we can vote on it, so. All right, with that being said, I want to thank everybody tonight. I apologize we couldn't wrap that up, but the flu went through Zach's house, so. Motion to adjourn by Aldo, second by Chuck. All those in favor? Thank you and have a great night.